They say you never really know someone until you see them at their worst. I used to think that was cynical nonsense, the kind of thing bitter people said to justify their own failures at relationships. I believed in trust, in the sanctity of marriage vows, in the idea that two people who truly loved each other could weather any storm. My name is David Patterson, and I was wrong about all of it. For 12 years, I thought I had it all figured out. A beautiful wife named Jennifer, two amazing kids, Emma, who just turned 9, and Tyler, who was 7, a comfortable home in the suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina, and a career as a senior project manager at a mid-sized construction firm that kept us financially stable. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We took family vacations to the beach every summer, had dinner together most nights, and still held hands when we walked through the neighborhood. From the outside, we were the picture-perfect American family. I worked hard, sometimes too hard. 60-hour weeks weren't uncommon, especially during peak construction season. But I always thought I was doing it for the right reasons, for Jennifer, for the kids, for our future. Every extra hour of overtime went into Emma's college fund, or toward paying down the mortgage early. Jennifer had quit her job as a dental hygienist when Tyler was born, and we'd agreed that her being home with the kids was worth more than the second income. It was a sacrifice we made together, or so I believed. Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way she started dressing differently, buying new clothes that seemed too fancy for running errands or meeting with her book club. The sudden interest in going to the gym 5 days a week when she'd barely exercised in years. The phone that was always face down on the counter. The screen that she'd tilt away from me when notifications popped up. But hindsight is 20/20, and when you trust someone completely, you don't go looking for reasons to doubt them. The truth has a way of coming out, though. It doesn't ask permission, and it doesn't wait for a convenient time. It just arrives one day and destroys everything you thought you knew about your life. For me, that day was a Tuesday in October, unseasonably warm for North Carolina, with leaves just starting to turn gold and red. I'd left work early because a supplier meeting got canceled, thinking I'd surprise Jennifer and maybe we could grab an early dinner together before picking up the kids from after-school care. What I discovered instead would set in motion a chain of events that would test everything I thought I knew about justice, revenge, and what it means to protect the people you love. This isn't a story about forgiveness or redemption. This is a story about what happens when the person you trusted most becomes a stranger, and how far you'll go to make sure they don't destroy what's left. I pulled into our driveway at 3:15 that Tuesday afternoon, already thinking about where we might go for an early dinner. Maybe that Italian place Jennifer liked, the one with the outdoor seating. The weather was perfect for it. Her car was in the garage, which was normal. What wasn't normal was the silver Audi parked on the street 2 houses down, a car I didn't recognize in our neighborhood where everyone pretty much knew everyone else's vehicles. I grabbed my laptop bag from the passenger seat and headed for the front door, already loosening my tie. The house was quiet when I stepped inside, which struck me as odd. Usually Jennifer had music playing or the TV on in the background. She hated silence. "Jen?" I called out, setting my keys in the bowl by the door. No response. I walked through the living room, noting her purse on the kitchen counter, her phone charging next to it. The back door was locked. Everything looked normal, undisturbed. Maybe she was taking a nap, though that would have been unusual for her. That's when I heard it. A sound from upstairs that made my stomach drop. A laugh. Jennifer's laugh, but different somehow. More intimate. Followed by a man's voice, low and indistinct. My heart started hammering in my chest. There had to be an explanation. Maybe she was on a video call with someone. Maybe the TV was on in our bedroom. Maybe I took the stairs 2 at a time, my mind racing through increasingly desperate explanations, even as my gut already knew the truth. The bedroom door was closed but not latched. Through the gap, I could see movement, hear sounds that no husband should ever have to hear coming from his own bedroom. I should have kicked the door open, should have stormed in there and confronted them both. That's what happens in movies, right? The wronged husband catches them in the act. There's a big scene, maybe a fight. But I didn't do any of that. Instead, I stood there in the hallway, frozen, as my entire world collapsed around me. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and did the only thing my shocked brain could think to do. I started recording the audio. 30 seconds. A minute. Evidence. I needed evidence. Then I backed away, moving as quietly as I could down the stairs, my legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. I made it to the kitchen before I had to grab the counter to steady myself. My wife, my Jennifer, in our bed, with someone else. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, though my phone told me only 20 minutes had passed. The audio file sat in my voice memos app, timestamped 3:17 p.m., 37 seconds of my marriage ending. My hands had stopped shaking. That was something. I'd driven to the grocery store parking lot 3 miles from our house, far enough that Jennifer wouldn't pass by, close enough that I could think clearly. The late afternoon sun heated the interior of my truck, but I barely noticed. I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I made any moves. The first call I made was to my office. My assistant, Katie, answered on the second ring. "Hey, David, everything okay? You left in a hurry." "Yeah, something came up." "Listen, can you pull Jennifer's name from our vendor database? I need to know if we've ever contracted with her company." The question had been nagging at me since I'd started noticing the changes in her routine 6 months ago. Patterson Consulting Group? My stomach dropped. That's the one. Hold on. I heard keyboard clicks. Okay, no. We've never used them, but... Huh. What? She's listed as a vendor for the Department of Transportation. I'm seeing it because we bid on some of the same projects. Looks like she won a pretty substantial contract last year. Infrastructure assessment for the I-77 expansion. I closed my eyes. Jennifer had told me about winning that contract. She'd been excited, said it was validation that her business was finally taking off after 3 years of struggling. The contract was worth $2.3 million over 18 months. Can you see the contract details? Not from here. That's all public record stuff, though. You could request it through the state's transparency portal. Thanks, Katie. I appreciate it. David, you sure you're okay? I will be. After I hung up, I sat there processing. Jennifer had been running her consulting business for 3 years, or so she'd told me. She'd started it when Tyler entered first grade, said she needed something for herself again. I'd supported it completely, even helped her set up the LLC, reviewed her business plan, connected her with potential clients. The business had been slow at first. Lots of proposals, few wins. Then last year, everything changed. The DOT contract. 2 smaller municipal contracts. Suddenly, she was busy. Too busy some weeks to handle school pickup. Too busy for family dinners. Too busy for me. I'd been proud of her. I pulled up the North Carolina Transparency portal on my phone and searched for Patterson Consulting Group. The contracts were all there, publicly listed. DOT Infrastructure Assessment, $2.3 million. City of Charlotte Traffic Flow Analysis, $340,000. Mecklenburg County Environmental Impact Study, $180,000. Nearly $3 million in government contracts over the past 18 months. I clicked through to the payment records. The state portal showed disbursements, money actually paid out. My throat tightened as I scrolled through the entries. Patterson Consulting Group had received $1.8 million so far from the DOT contract alone. Payments were made quarterly based on submitted progress reports and deliverables. I thought about Jennifer's calendar, the one she kept on the kitchen counter, color-coded and meticulous. Or so it appeared. Business meetings in blue, client site visits in green, research days in purple. I thought about the gym. 5 days a week, sometimes 6. 2-hour sessions. I thought about the weekend last month when she'd told me she needed to travel to Raleigh for a DOT presentation. She'd been gone for 3 days. I'd handled the kids, ordered pizza, helped with homework, felt like a good husband supporting his wife's career. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Where are you? Your truck's not here." I stared at the message. She had some nerve. I typed back, "Supplier meeting ran long. Be home around 7." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, "Okay, kids are at your mom's until 6. Of course they were. She'd planned this. Sent the kids away so she could bring them to our house, to our bed. I forced myself to breathe slowly. Getting angry wouldn't help. I needed information. I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. I called my brother, James. He was a CPA, worked for one of the big firms in Charlotte. If anyone could help me understand the financial side, it was him. "Hey, Dave. What's up? I need your help with something. It's complicated." "Okay." His tone shifted immediately. James and I were close. He could hear something was wrong. If someone had government consulting contracts worth millions of dollars, there would be oversight, right? Audits? Verification that the work was actually being done? Absolutely. Government contracts are heavily regulated. Progress reports, deliverables, site visits, documentation. Why? What if someone was billing for work they never did? Silence on the other end. Then, that would be fraud. Federal fraud if it's a federal contract, state fraud if it's state level. Either way, it's serious. Prison serious. We're talking False Claims Act, potentially. Why are you asking me this? I can't explain right now, but hypothetically, how would someone prove that work wasn't being done? You'd need to show that the deliverables were fake or non-existent. Compare what was promised in the contract to what was actually delivered. Look at the billing records versus actual work product. Site visit logs. Employee timesheets, if there are supposed to be employees. Government contracts require detailed documentation, so if someone's committing fraud, there's usually a paper trail showing the gaps. I thought about Jennifer's home office, the locked filing cabinet she'd insisted on buying last year, the password-protected laptop she never let me use. How would you even start investigating something like that? "Dave, what the hell is going on?" "I can't tell you yet. I just need to know." He sighed. "You'd start with the public records, contract terms, payment schedules, required deliverables. Then you'd compare that to what actually exists. If there's a discrepancy, you document everything. But Dave, if this is what I think it is, you need to be really careful. Fraud investigation isn't something you do alone." "I know. Thanks, James. Call me when you can actually talk." "I will." I hung up and sat there as the sun began to set. The parking lot was emptying out, people heading home to their families, their normal lives, their intact marriages. I pulled up the DOT contract details again. The infrastructure assessment required quarterly progress reports, site inspection documentation, and a comprehensive final analysis due in March, 4 months from now. Each progress report was supposed to include photographic documentation, engineering assessments, and detailed analysis of road conditions, bridge integrity, and expansion feasibility. I clicked through to the submitted reports. They were all there, uploaded to the state portal. Professional-looking PDFs with charts, graphs, photographs of highway infrastructure. But something nagged at me. I zoomed in on one of the photographs, a bridge assessment from the July report. The image showed a bridge support structure with visible stress cracks. The metadata was stripped, but the photo quality was high. Professional. I did a reverse image search. The results loaded. My stomach turned to ice. The photograph was from a 2019 Engineering Journal article about bridge maintenance in Ohio. Not North Carolina? Ohio. I checked another photo from the same report. Another reverse image search. This one came from a Texas DOT study published in 2020. I went through 5 more images. Every single one was stolen from other sources. None of them were original. None of them were from North Carolina infrastructure. Jennifer hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been defrauding the government, billing for work she'd never done, submitting fake reports compiled from stolen images and plagiarized analysis, collecting millions in taxpayer money while doing absolutely nothing. And I was willing to bet she'd been spending that time, the time she was supposedly working, with him, whoever he was. The affair was bad enough, but this? This was something else entirely. I thought about the silver Audi, the expensive car parked near our house. I pulled up the photo I'd taken of its license plate before I'd gone inside. It took me 15 minutes to run the plate through a public records search. The car was registered to a man named Derek Walsh, age 34. Address in the Myers Park neighborhood, one of the wealthiest areas in Charlotte. I searched his name. LinkedIn profile loaded first. Derek Walsh, Senior Acquisitions Manager at the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Everything clicked into place. Jennifer hadn't won those contracts on merit. She'd won them because she was sleeping with someone who had the power to award them. And together, they'd been stealing millions from taxpayers while I worked 60-hour weeks and raised our children. I sat in that parking lot as darkness fell, and I made a decision. This wasn't just about divorce anymore. I sat in my car outside James's office building until the dashboard clock read 9:47 p.m. The parking lot had emptied hours ago, leaving just my truck and a handful of vehicles belonging to the cleaning crew. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Jennifer. I'd turned off the ringer after the first 5. The audio file sat in my cloud storage now, backed up 3 different ways. The screenshots of her fraudulent reports, the payment records, Derek Walsh's employee profile, all of it preserved in multiple locations. James had made me promise not to do anything stupid before we talked again. I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. My phone buzzed with a text. Jennifer. Where are you? I'm worried. The audacity of it made my jaw clench. Worried. She was worried because her schedule had been disrupted, because I deviated from the predictable pattern that made her double life possible. Another text. The kids are asking about you. That one landed differently. Emma and Tyler were at Jennifer's mother's house for the week. Fall break, a planned visit that now felt like Providence. They didn't need to see what was coming next. I started the engine. Not toward home, not yet. The NC Department of Transportation headquarters occupied a sprawling complex off Raleigh's Beltline. I'd driven past it 1,000 times without giving it a second thought. Now, in the darkness, I pulled into the visitor lot and stared at the main building's illuminated windows. Derek Walsh worked somewhere in there. Senior Acquisitions Manager. The man who'd been in my bed this afternoon held a position of public trust, awarding contracts funded by taxpayer money. My money. Everyone's money. How many other contracts had he steered to Jennifer? The DOT infrastructure project was massive, but her company had won others too. Smaller ones. A consulting engagement with the Department of Environmental Quality, a technology assessment for the State Highway Patrol. Each one awarded without competitive bidding, justified through emergency provisions or specialized expertise clauses. All fake. All fraud. I pulled up the DOT's organizational chart on my phone. The Acquisitions Division reported to the Chief Procurement Officer, who reported to the Deputy Secretary of Administration. Standard bureaucratic hierarchy. But somewhere in that chain, there had to be oversight. Controls. Someone whose job was to prevent exactly what Jennifer and Derek had been doing. Unless they'd found a way around those controls too. My phone rang. Jennifer again. I declined the call and opened my email instead. The DOT's website listed a fraud hotline, an anonymous reporting system administered by the state auditor's office. I read through the submission guidelines, the promise of confidentiality, the warning that false reports could result in prosecution. Nothing about this was false. But James's words echoed in my head. You need a lawyer before you do anything. This gets complicated fast. I closed the browser and pulled up my recent calls. Found the number I was looking for. 3 rings then. David, it's almost 10 o'clock. I know, Michael. I'm sorry. Michael Brennan had been my attorney when I'd bought the house, handled our wills, standard suburban legal needs. Not a divorce lawyer, not a criminal lawyer. But he'd know who was. What's going on? I need a referral. 2 referrals, actually. A divorce attorney and someone who handles government fraud cases. Silence on the other end. Then, those are pretty different practice areas. It's the same case. More silence. Are you in your car right now? Yeah. Where? I looked at the DOT building. Doesn't matter. I'm not doing anything stupid. David, I've known you for 6 years. You don't call at 10 p.m. unless something's very wrong. Whatever it is, don't make it worse tonight. Can you do that? Could I? I looked at the building again, imagined walking in tomorrow morning, finding Derek Walsh's office, putting my fist through his face. The satisfaction would last about 3 seconds before security arrived. Yeah, I said. I can do that. Good. Come to my office tomorrow at 8. I'll have some names for you. We'll figure this out properly. Okay. David, drive home. Don't go anywhere else. Don't confront anyone. Just go home. Thanks, Michael. I ended the call and sat there another 10 minutes, watching the building. A security guard made rounds past the entrance, his flashlight sweeping across the glass doors. Normal night at a government office. No hint of the corruption festering inside. Finally, I put the truck in gear and headed for the highway. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway at 11:23 p.m. Jennifer's car sat in the garage, exactly where it had been this afternoon. Before everything changed. I used the front door instead of the garage entrance. Needed the extra few seconds to prepare myself. She was waiting in the living room, curled on the couch with her phone. She stood when I walked in, her face arranged in an expression of concern that might have fooled me yesterday. Where have you been? I've been calling for hours. I set my keys on the entry table, kept my voice level. Had some things to take care of. What things? David, you left work early. You didn't come home. I said I had things to take care of. I moved past her toward the stairs. She followed. This isn't like you. You're scaring me. I stopped on the 3rd step, turned to look at her. Really look at her. The woman I'd married 12 years ago. The mother of my children. The stranger who'd been lying to me for God knew how long. I'm scaring you, I repeated. Yes. Talk to me. What's wrong? Every instinct screamed to confront her right there. To play the audio recording, watch her face as she heard herself with Derek Walsh. To demand answers, explanations, something that would make sense of the wreckage of our life together. But James's warning held me back. Michael's advice. The knowledge that anything I said now could complicate what was coming. I'm tired, I said instead. Long day. I'm going to bed. David. We'll talk tomorrow, Jennifer. I climbed the stairs before she could respond. Our bedroom, the same room where she'd been with him hours ago, felt contaminated. I grabbed a pillow and blanket from the closet. Where are you going? She'd followed me up. Guest room. Why? I looked at her. Because I want to sleep in the guest room. That okay with you? Something flickered across her face. Calculation, concern, fear. She was trying to read me, figure out what had changed. Fine, she said quietly. if that's what you want. I closed the guest room door and locked it. Set my phone alarm for 6 a.m. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Michael, get the referrals I needed. Start the process of dismantling everything Jennifer had built on lies. But tonight, lying in the dark in my own house feeling like an intruder, I let myself acknowledge the full weight of it. My marriage was over. Had been over for longer than I'd known. My wife was a criminal. My children's mother was going to prison. And I was the one who was going to put her there. I didn't sleep. The morning came without sleep. I'd spent the night staring at the ceiling of the guest room, my phone next to me on the nightstand. The screen dark, but still somehow accusatory. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her laugh. That intimate, breathless sound that used to be mine alone. At 6:47 a.m., I heard the shower running upstairs. Our morning routine, unchanged for years. She woke first, showered, made coffee while I got ready. The normalcy of it made my stomach turn. I waited until I heard her footsteps descending the stairs before I got up. When I emerged from the guest room, she was in the kitchen, her back to me, pouring coffee into her travel mug. She wore gray slacks and a burgundy blouse I didn't recognize. More new clothes. You were in the guest room. Not a question. Her voice was careful, measured. Didn't want to disturb you. Got in late. The lie came easily. Too easily. She turned, and I saw the calculation in her eyes, trying to determine what I knew, what I suspected. Her hand tightened slightly on the mug. David, we should talk. Can't. Running behind. I grabbed my keys from the counter, not meeting her eyes. Supplier meeting this morning, then the Riverside project site inspection. Tonight then. We need to… maybe. I was already moving toward the garage. Might be late again. I felt her watching me as I left. The weight of her stare, heavy with unspoken things. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of Patterson Construction for 20 minutes before going inside. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my mind was racing through scenarios, possibilities, next steps. Michael Brennan had promised to call today with referrals. Until then, I needed to maintain the facade. Go to work. Act normal. Give Jennifer no reason to suspect I knew everything. The supplier meeting was torture. I sat through 45 minutes of discussion about rebar specifications and concrete grades, nodding at appropriate moments, making notes I wouldn't remember. My project manager, Kevin, asked if I was feeling all right. Just tired, I said. Late night reviewing the Riverside specs. He accepted this without question. I'd always been the reliable one, the detail-oriented guy who put in the hours. No one would suspect that my mind was 1,000 miles away, calculating federal fraud statutes and wondering if my wife would see our children from behind bars. My phone buzzed at 10:23 a.m. Michael Brennan. I excused myself and took the call in my truck. David, I've got your referrals. His voice was brisk, professional. For divorce, I'm recommending Lauren Mitchell at Mitchell & Associates. She's handled high-asset cases with fraud components before, sharp as they come. I wrote down the number he provided. For the government fraud issue, and David, this is serious business. You need to speak with Robert Williams at… Not Williams, I interrupted. Anyone else? A pause. Particular reason? Just not that name. Understood. I heard papers shuffling. Thomas Garrett then. Former federal prosecutor, now in private practice. He specializes in government contract fraud cases, both defense and reporting. He'll know how to handle this properly. Reporting, I repeated. The word felt heavy. David, I need to be clear with you. What you've described, if it's accurate, this isn't just a civil matter. This is criminal fraud against the federal government. The FBI, the Inspector General's office, possibly Homeland Security investigations, they all have jurisdiction. If you report this, you're setting off a chain reaction you can't stop. I know. Do you? Because once you make that call, Your wife will be investigated, probably arrested. There will be a prosecution. Your children will see their mother. I know, I said again, harder this time. You think I haven't thought about that? You think I want Emma and Tyler to visit their mother in prison? Then what do you want? I stared out the windshield at the construction yard. Stacks of lumber, pallets of materials, the organized chaos of building things. Creating something from nothing. The opposite of what Jennifer had done. Taking money for nothing, destroying trust, breaking laws. I want justice, I said quietly. And I want my kids protected from the fallout. Those might be mutually exclusive goals. Then help me figure out how to do both. Another pause. Then, call Thomas Garrett. Today. Tell him everything. He'll advise you on the proper reporting channels and help you understand the timeline. And David? Call Lauren Mitchell too. You need to file for divorce before the criminal investigation becomes public. It'll be better for you and the children if you're already separated when this hits. How long do I have? Until what? Until I have to decide. Report or don't report. You've already decided, Michael said. You decided the moment you called me. Now you're just working up the courage to pull the trigger. He was right. I'd known what I was going to do since I sat in that parking lot Tuesday afternoon, listening to my wife betray everything we'd built. The question wasn't if. It was how to protect Emma and Tyler from the blast radius. Make the calls, Michael said. Today. I called Lauren Mitchell first. Her assistant scheduled me for 3 p.m. that afternoon. A cancellation had just opened up. Then I called Thomas Garrett's office. His paralegal, a woman named Diana, asked preliminary questions about the nature of my concern. Government contract fraud, I said. Multiple contracts, federal and state money, falsified deliverables. I have documentation. Are you the contractor in question? No, I'm reporting someone else. Relationship to the subject? I closed my eyes. My wife. A brief silence. Then, Mr. Garrett can see you tomorrow morning at 9. Please bring all documentation you have. Contracts, invoices, communications, anything relevant. And Mr. Patterson, don't discuss this with anyone else. Not your wife, not friends, not family beyond what you've already disclosed to your attorney. Understood? Understood. I sat in my truck after the call ended, the phone heavy in my hand. Tomorrow morning at 9, I would walk into Thomas Garrett's office and hand over evidence that would destroy my children's mother. By this time next week, FBI agents would probably be executing search warrants. By next month, Jennifer would be under indictment. And Derek Walsh. I couldn't forget about Derek Walsh, the senior acquisitions manager who'd traded government contracts for access to my wife. He'd go down too. Maybe he had a family. Maybe he had kids who'd watch their father get arrested. I didn't care. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Where are you? Need to talk? I stared at the message. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. She was typing something else, deleting it, trying again. Finally, please come home tonight, it's important. I typed back, late meeting, don't wait up. The 3 dots appeared again, stayed for a long time. No response came. I wondered if she knew. If Derek had somehow tipped her off that something was wrong, that someone was asking questions. Or maybe she'd just seen the look on my face this morning and realized her time was running out. Either way, I wasn't ready to face her. Not until I'd spoken with Lauren Mitchell, not until I understood my legal position, not until I knew exactly how to protect my children from what was coming. At 2:45 p.m., I left the office and drove to Lauren Mitchell's firm in downtown Charlotte. The building was modern glass and steel, the kind of place that charged $400 an hour and earned every penny. I rode the elevator to the 12th floor, my heart hammering against my ribs. The receptionist smiled professionally and offered me coffee. I accepted, though I didn't drink it. At precisely 3 p.m., Lauren Mitchell emerged from her office. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back and sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in 3 seconds. She shook my hand firmly. "Mr. Patterson, come in." Her office overlooked the city, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Charlotte's skyline. She gestured to a chair across from her desk and sat down, a legal pad already in front of her. "Michael Brennan gave me the basics," she said. 12-year marriage, 2 minor children, wife's infidelity, and substantial fraud allegations. Before we go further, I need to know, are you certain you want to proceed with divorce? Yes. No chance of reconciliation? I thought of Jennifer's laugh, intimate and secret. I thought of Derek Walsh's voice in my bedroom. I thought of $1.8 million in taxpayer money, stolen and spent on God knows what. None, she made a note. Then let's talk about protecting your children. The next morning came too quickly. I'd barely slept, my mind running through scenarios, contingencies, worst-case outcomes. Jennifer had stayed in the guest room again. At breakfast, she'd tried to catch my eye, but I'd focused on making sure Emma had her homework and Tyler remembered his soccer cleats. "David, we really need to," she'd started. "Not now," I'd said, checking my watch. "I have an early meeting." Which was true. Just not the kind of meeting she imagined. Thomas Garrett's office was in uptown Charlotte, occupying the 14th floor of a glass tower that reflected the morning sun. The lobby was all polished marble and leather furniture, the kind of place that charged by the quarter hour and made no apologies for it. "Mr. Patterson?" The receptionist smiled professionally. "Mr. Garrett is ready for you. Conference room B just down the hall." Thomas Garrett stood when I entered, extending his hand. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 40s with graying temples and the kind of firm handshake that inspired confidence. His suit probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "David, thanks for coming in." He gestured to a chair at a long conference table. "Can I get you coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thanks." He settled into the chair across from me, opening a leather portfolio. "I've reviewed the materials you sent over. Before we go further, I want to make sure you understand what we're discussing here. Government contract fraud is a federal offense. If what you've documented is accurate, and from what I've seen it appears to be, we're talking about serious criminal exposure." "I understand." "For your wife," he continued, watching my face. "And potentially for Derek Walsh, the DOT official. Maybe others, depending on how deep this goes." I nodded. My hands were steady on the table. I'd thought about little else for the past 72 hours. "Walk me through it again," Garrett said. "In your own words. How did you discover the fraud?" I told him everything. The affair, the discovery of the contracts, the reverse image searches that revealed Jennifer had been submitting stolen photographs as evidence of completed work, the pattern of billing that coincided with her trips away, supposedly for site visits, actually for time with Derek. Garrett took notes, occasionally stopping me to ask for clarification. When I finished, he sat back. "The DOT contract is the largest?" "Yes. $2.3 million for infrastructure assessment across 12 counties, awarded 8 months ago." "And she submitted progress reports?" "4 of them, all containing photographs from other states, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. She's billing for field work she never performed, assessments she never conducted, reports she never actually wrote." "How do you know she didn't subcontract the work?" I checked. Her business bank statements show no payments to subcontractors. The money goes in, and it goes right back out. To her personal account, to credit cards, to cash withdrawals. She's been spending it. Garrett made another note. "You mentioned there are other contracts besides the DOT. At least 4 others I've found. Smaller amounts, but the same pattern. Total value around $700,000. So we're looking at approximately $3 million in fraudulent contracts. He tapped his pen against the portfolio. David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. What's your goal here? What do you want to happen? I'd known this question was coming. I'd rehearsed the answer. But now that the moment was here, the words felt heavier than I'd anticipated. I want her to face consequences. Real consequences. She's been stealing from taxpayers, from people who work hard and pay their taxes expecting that money to be used properly. She's been lying to government officials, falsifying reports, committing fraud. And she's been doing it while I've been working 60-hour weeks to support our family, while our kids have been wondering why mommy's gone so much. You want her prosecuted? Yes. Garrett studied me for a long moment. You understand that if we report this to the FBI, there's no taking it back. Once that ball starts rolling, you can't stop it. Your wife will likely be arrested, charged with federal crimes. If convicted, she's looking at significant prison time. Your children will know their mother is a felon. I know. And Derek Walsh will face charges too. Conspiracy to defraud the government, possibly bribery, abuse of his position. His career is over, regardless of whether he's convicted. Good. Garrett set down his pen. I'm not trying to talk you out of this. What your wife has done is serious, and if the evidence supports it, she should be held accountable. But I need you to understand the full scope of what happens next. This isn't just about your marriage ending. This is about federal prosecutors, FBI investigations, grand juries, trials. It will take months, maybe years. It will be expensive. It will be public. Your name will be in the news. Your children's lives will be turned upside down. Their lives are already going to be turned upside down, I said quietly. Their mother has been having an affair, stealing money, lying about everything. The question isn't whether they get hurt. It's whether she faces consequences for what she's done, or whether she gets away with it. He nodded slowly. All right. Then here's what I recommend. We need to organize your evidence into a comprehensive package, something that makes it easy for federal investigators to see the full scope of the fraud. Bank records, contract documents, the photographs you've identified as stolen, billing records, everything. We present it to the FBI's white-collar crime division along with a detailed summary. How long will that take? To prepare the package, a few days, maybe a week if we're thorough. I'll need access to all your documentation, everything you've collected so far. I have it organized. I pulled out a flash drive from my pocket. Copies of everything. Bank statements, contracts, progress reports, the original sources for the stolen photographs, a timeline of her billing versus her actual whereabouts. Garrett took the drive, turning it over in his fingers. You've been thorough. I'm good at my job. Documentation, organization, following through. I just never thought I'd be using those skills for this. One more thing, Garrett said. Have you spoken to a divorce attorney? Lauren Mitchell. I met with her 2 days ago. Good. You'll need to coordinate with her. The criminal case and the divorce will run on parallel tracks, but they'll affect each other. For instance, any assets your wife obtained through fraud could be subject to forfeiture. That impacts the property division in your divorce. I hadn't thought about that. The house? Depends on whether fraud proceeds were used to pay the mortgage, make improvements, anything like that. The government will trace the money. Whatever they can prove came from fraudulent contracts, they'll try to recover. My stomach tightened. We could lose the house. It's possible. Though if you can show you had no knowledge of the fraud and didn't benefit from it, you might be able to protect your share. That's something to discuss with Lauren. I thought about Emma and Tyler, about uprooting them from the only home they'd known. But what was the alternative? Let Jennifer keep the money she'd stolen? Pretend none of this had happened? What about her government contracts? I asked. The ones where work is supposedly still ongoing? Garrett's expression sharpened. Which ones? The DOT contract. It's supposed to run for another 16 months. There's a progress meeting scheduled for next month, November 15th. She's supposed to present her findings for the first phase. She won't have anything to present? No. He leaned forward. David, that meeting could be important. If she's required to present work product and can't deliver, that's evidence of fraud happening in real time. It's not just historical billing irregularities, it's active deception. You want me to let it happen? Let her go to that meeting? I want to discuss it with the FBI. They might want to monitor the situation, see how she handles it. Does she admit she hasn't done the work? Does she fabricate more false evidence? Does she involve Derek Walsh in creating a cover story? He made another note. When did you say the meeting is? November 15th, 3 weeks from now. That gives us time to get the evidence package to the FBI. Let them start their investigation. They'll want to interview you, probably execute search warrants on her business and personal accounts. But they might also want to see how that meeting plays out. The thought of waiting 3 more weeks, of maintaining the pretense at home while federal investigators built their case, made me feel sick. But I understood the logic. I can do that, I said. Whatever helps build the strongest case. Garrett closed his portfolio. I'll start preparing the evidence package today. I should have something ready to present to the FBI by early next week. In the meantime, don't confront your wife. Don't let on that you know about the fraud. Can you do that? I thought about the past 3 days, about sitting across from Jennifer at dinner, about sleeping in the same house while rage burned in my chest. Yes, I said, I can do that. The next morning, I sat in Thomas Garrett's office again, this time with a flash drive containing everything I'd compiled over the past week. The leather chair creaked as I shifted, watching him plug it into his computer. I've organized it by category, I said. Contracts, billing records, the plagiarized reports with their original sources, bank statements showing the deposits. Garrett's eyes moved across his screen, clicking through folders. The only sound was the hum of his computer and the distant murmur of traffic from the street below. His expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. You've been thorough, he said after several minutes. Very thorough. I'm good at my job. Documentation, timelines, evidence. That's what I do every day. He opened one of the PDF files, a side-by-side comparison I'd created showing Jennifer's submitted photos next to the originals from a Michigan DOT report published 3 years ago. Same cracks in the pavement, same angle, same everything. This is damning, Garrett said quietly. The FBI will want to see this. How long before they act? Hard to say. They'll need to conduct their own investigation, verify the evidence, build their case. He leaned back in his chair. Could be weeks. Could be months. My stomach tightened. Months. Federal cases move slowly, David. They'll want this airtight before they make any moves. He closed the file and turned to face me. The question is whether you can wait that long. I thought about last night, Jennifer at the dinner table, asking Emma about her math homework, laughing at something Tyler said about his friend's new puppy. Normal. Everything's so devastatingly normal. The DOT meeting is November 15th, I said. 3 weeks from yesterday. Garrett nodded slowly. You mentioned that before. You're thinking of letting her walk into it? I'm thinking she's going to have to produce something. Real work or more fraud. I met his eyes. Either way, it creates a record, more evidence. Or it gives her a chance to cover her tracks. She could claim the work was delayed, ask for an extension, buy herself time. He tapped his pen against the desk. Though from what you've shown me, she's already submitted multiple progress reports claiming work is completed. Hard to walk that back. She's boxed herself in. She has. Garrett pulled up another file, one of Jennifer's invoices. $200,000 billed in September alone, for site assessments that never happened, analysis that was never conducted. He shook his head. The government doesn't take kindly to this kind of theft. What kind of sentence are we talking about? Wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, potentially false claims violations. He counted on his fingers. Each charge carries its own penalties. We're looking at years, not months, and that's before restitution. She'll owe back everything she fraudulently collected, plus penalties and interest. The number hit me like a physical weight. Years. Emma would be a teenager. Tyler would be. And Derek Walsh? I asked. Same charges, potentially worse. He's a government official who abused his position for personal gain. The prosecution will make an example of him. Garrett closed the laptop. David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. I waited. What's your end game here? Is this about justice, or is this about hurting your wife? The question should have angered me. Instead, I found myself considering it carefully. I don't know anymore, I admitted. I thought I did. I thought this was about protecting taxpayers, about doing the right thing. But when I'm lying in bed next to her at night, knowing what she's done, I trailed off. Maybe it's both. Garrett didn't look surprised. That's honest, at least. But you need to understand. Once you hand this to the FBI, you can't control what happens next. This becomes a federal investigation. Your wife will likely face arrest. Your home could be seized as part of asset forfeiture. Your children's lives will be turned upside down. They're already upside down. They just don't know it yet. There's a difference between a divorce and having your mother led away in handcuffs. I thought about Emma's face when she'd asked me last week if everything was okay. The way Tyler had hugged me before bed, holding on just a little longer than usual. Kids knew. Maybe not the details, but they sensed when their world was shifting. What would you do? I asked. Garrett was quiet for a long moment. I'd ask myself if I could live with doing nothing. If the answer is no, and I suspect for you it is, then you're already committed to this path. He picked up his phone. I have a contact at the FBI's white-collar crime division. Agent named Patricia Reeves. She's handled several major fraud cases, knows the DOT contracts inside and out. You want to call her now? I want to set up a meeting, this week, if possible. You bring your evidence, walk her through everything you found, and let her take it from there. He paused. Once you do this, David, there's no going back. You understand that? I nodded. Make the call. 2 days later, I found myself in a conference room at the FBI's Charlotte field office. The building was exactly what I'd expected. Institutional, secure, designed to intimidate. Patricia Reeves was not what I'd expected. Mid-40s, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, a handshake that could crack walnuts. Mr. Patterson, thank you for coming in. She gestured to a chair across from her. Thomas Garrett sat beside me, his briefcase already open. Agent Reeves, this is Thomas Garrett. I know, we've worked together before. She smiled briefly. You don't bring me easy cases, Tom. This one's not easy, but it's solid. She turned her attention to me. Why don't you walk me through what you discovered, Mr. Patterson? Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her about coming home early, about finding the contracts, about the plagiarized reports and the billing records. I showed her the evidence I'd compiled, the timeline I'd constructed, the connections between Jennifer and Derek Walsh. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. How long have you known about this? Just over a week. And you haven't confronted your wife? No. Why not? I glanced at Garrett, who nodded slightly. Because I wanted to make sure someone could stop her. If I confronted her, she'd have time to destroy evidence to cover her tracks. This way, you deliver us a complete package. Reeves tapped her pen against her notepad. You're right to be cautious. We've seen cases fall apart because a spouse tipped off the target before we could secure the evidence. So you'll investigate. We'll need to verify everything you've shown us, conduct our own analysis, interview relevant parties at the DOT. She leaned forward. But yes, Mr. Patterson, based on what you've presented, we'll be opening a formal investigation into Jennifer Patterson and Derek Walsh. The relief that washed over me was unexpected. I'd been carrying this alone for days, the weight of it pressing down on everything I did. Now, finally, someone else knew. Someone with the power to act. How long before we make arrests? Reeves shook her head. Too early to say. We need to build our case carefully. Government fraud cases are complex, and we want to make sure we have everything before we move. There's a meeting, I said. November 15th. Jennifer is supposed to present her progress to the DOT Oversight Committee. Reeves exchanged a look with Garrett. You're thinking of letting her attend? I'm thinking she's going to have to either produce work she hasn't done or commit more fraud in front of witnesses. Or she could withdraw from the contract, claim personal reasons, and we lose the opportunity to catch her in the act. Reeves drummed her fingers on the table. It's a risk. Everything about this is a risk. She studied me for a long moment. Mr. Patterson, I need you to understand something. Once we start this investigation, your life is going to get very complicated. Your wife will eventually learn that you're the source of the information. Your marriage is already over, I said quietly. The moment she climbed into bed with someone else while stealing from taxpayers, it was over. I just didn't know it yet. Reeves nodded slowly. All right, we'll move forward. I'll need you to sign some documents, provide official statements. And Mr. Patterson, until we tell you otherwise, you can't let on that you know anything. Can you do that? I thought about the past week, the dinners, the conversations, the careful normalcy I'd maintained while my world crumbled. Yes, I said. I can do that. The next morning, I drove to work on autopilot, my mind replaying the conversation with Agent Reeves. The construction site felt surreal. Men operating heavy machinery, the smell of fresh concrete, the constant noise. Normal. Everything looked normal while my life was anything but. I was reviewing structural plans when my phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Can we talk tonight, after kids are in bed? My stomach clenched. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. Sure, everything okay? Just need to discuss something important. I set the phone down, my hand trembling slightly. What did she know? Had Derek warned her? Had she noticed something off about my behavior? The day crawled by. Every hour felt like 3. I kept checking my phone, half expecting another message, some clue about what she wanted to discuss. Nothing came. When I finally pulled into the driveway at 6:30, Jennifer's car was already there. Through the kitchen window, I could see her moving around, preparing dinner. The scene was so achingly domestic it made my chest hurt. Dad! Tyler launched himself at me the moment I walked in. Mom said we're having tacos. That's great, buddy. I ruffled his hair, forcing normalcy into my voice. Jennifer glanced up from the stove, offering a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Hey, how was your day? Long? Yours? Fine. Caught up on some paperwork. She turned back to the ground beef, sizzling in the pan. Paperwork. The word felt like a joke. What paperwork? Forging more progress reports? Photoshopping more stolen images? Dinner was torture. Emma talked about a book report she had due. Tyler demonstrated a new trick he'd learned in soccer practice, nearly knocking over his water glass. Jennifer laughed at the right moments, asked the right questions. I contributed when expected, my responses automatic. All the while, I wondered what she wanted to talk about. After dinner, After homework was checked and teeth were brushed and bedtime stories were read, I found Jennifer waiting in the living room. She'd poured 2 glasses of wine, set them on the coffee table. "Sit," she said, patting the couch beside her. I sat, keeping a careful distance between us. She noticed. Of course she noticed. "David, She paused, picking up her wine glass and setting it back down without drinking. "I know things have been weird between us lately." "Have they?" I kept my voice neutral. "Don't do that. Don't pretend everything's fine when it's not." She turned to face me fully. "You've been distant, distracted, and I know I haven't been—" She stopped, seeming to search for words. "I haven't been as present as I should be." I said nothing, waiting. "The business has been consuming," she continued. "These government contracts are incredible opportunities, but they're also incredibly demanding. The DOT project especially. There's so much riding on it." "I'm sure there is." The words came out harder than I intended. She flinched. "I feel like you're angry with me." "Should I be?" "I don't know. Are you?" Her eyes searched mine, and for a moment I saw something there. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. "You've been coming home at odd times, looking at me strangely. I need to know if something's wrong." The irony was almost funny. She was worried about me, about what I might know or suspect. This wasn't a confession. This was reconnaissance. "Work's been stressful," I said carefully. "The Riverside project is behind schedule. Budget issues, the usual." "Is that all?" "What else would there be?" She studied me for a long moment. "I don't know. You tell me." We sat in silence, the tension thick enough to choke on. Finally, Jennifer picked up her wine and took a long drink. "The DOT meeting is coming up," she said, changing tactics. "November 15th. It's a big presentation, final review of the infrastructure assessment before they release the remaining funds." "Sounds important." "It is. Derek, Mr. Walsh, will be there. His supervisor, other department heads." She was watching me closely. "I've been working on the presentation for weeks." Lies. All lies. But I kept my expression blank, mildly interested. "I was thinking," she continued, "maybe you could come to the presentation. It would mean a lot to have you there, supporting me." The suggestion hit me like a physical blow. She wanted me there, at the meeting where she'd have to present work that didn't exist. Was this a test? A way to gauge whether I knew anything? Or was it something else? A desperate attempt to maintain the facade, to prove to herself that everything was still normal. "I don't know if that's appropriate," I said slowly. "It's a government meeting. Would they even allow—" "It's open to the public. Transparency requirements. Anyone can attend." She reached out, placed her hand on my knee. I forced myself not to pull away. "Please, David. I know we've been disconnected. This is important to me. I want you to see what I've accomplished." What she'd accomplished. Jesus. "I'll think about it," I said. Her hand tightened on my knee. "That's all I ask." She leaned in, and for a horrible moment I thought she was going to kiss me. Instead, she rested her head on my shoulder, a gesture that once would have felt natural and now felt like a violation. "I love you," she whispered. "I know I don't say it enough lately, but I do. You and the kids, you're everything to me." I sat frozen, her weight against me, her perfume in my nose. The same perfume she'd been wearing when she was upstairs with Derek Walsh, when she was billing taxpayers for work she'd never done, when she was destroying everything we'd built. "I love you too," I heard myself say, and hated how easily the lie came. That night, lying in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling and thought about the November 15th meeting. Agent Reeves had mentioned it as a potential trigger point, when Jennifer would either have to produce real work or find a way to delay, to buy more time. But Jennifer inviting me changed things. She wanted me there as a witness to her success. Or maybe as an alibi. Someone who could testify that she'd done the work, made the presentation, earned the money. Or maybe, and this thought made my blood run cold, she was planning to pull it off. To present plagiarized work convincingly enough that no one would question it. To collect the final payment and disappear the evidence before anyone looked too closely. I rolled onto my side, watching her sleep. Her face was peaceful, relaxed. No hint of the fraud she was committing. No sign of the affair she was conducting. No evidence of the family she was destroying. My phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. I grabbed it, careful not to wake her. An email from Agent Reeves, sent at 11:47 p.m. Call me tomorrow. New development. I read it 3 times, my heart hammering. New development. What did that mean? Had they found something else? Were they moving faster than expected? Or had something gone wrong? I set the phone down and closed my eyes, knowing sleep wouldn't come. In less than 3 weeks, Jennifer would stand before a room full of government officials and try to present work that didn't exist. And I would be there, watching it happen. The question was whether the FBI would be there too. The morning of November 15th arrived with unseasonable cold. I'd barely slept, running through scenarios in my head. Jennifer had been up before dawn, the sound of the shower waking me at 5 a.m. When I came downstairs, she was already dressed in a navy suit I'd never seen before, her laptop open on the kitchen table, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Morning," I said, pouring coffee. She glanced up, startled. "You're up early." "Big day." I kept my voice neutral. "Wanted to make sure I had time to get the kids to school before heading to the meeting." "Right." She returned to her screen, but I caught the tension in her shoulders. "David, you really don't have to come. I know you're busy. I wouldn't miss it." I sat across from her. "How many times does your husband get to see you present to state officials? I'm proud of you, Jen." The words tasted like ash, but her expression flickered with something I couldn't quite read. Relief? Guilt? Fear? "Okay," she said finally. "The meeting starts at 10. DOT headquarters, 5th floor conference room. I'll be there." She nodded, closing her laptop with more force than necessary. "I need to go over my presentation one more time, at the office." It was 6:30 in the morning. Her office was a spare bedroom upstairs that she rarely used, but I just smiled. "Good luck." After she left, I checked my phone. A text from Agent Reeves had come through at 5:47 a.m. "We'll be there. Don't intervene. Let her present." The North Carolina Department of Transportation headquarters occupied a brutalist concrete building in downtown Raleigh, a 2-hour drive from Charlotte. I'd told Jennifer I had a work call and would drive separately, meeting her there. In reality, I wanted my own car, my own escape route when everything fell apart. The parking garage was half empty at 9:45 a.m. I found Jennifer's Lexus on the 3rd level, parked with precision between the lines. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, steadier than I'd expected. The past 3 weeks of waiting had burned away most of my anxiety, leaving behind something harder. Resolve, maybe. Or just exhaustion. Inside, security directed me to the 5th floor. The elevator ride felt interminable, my reflection in the polished doors showing a man who looked normal enough. Gray suit, blue tie, leather portfolio under my arm. No one would guess I was about to watch my wife's life implode. The conference room was easy to find. Voices carried through the partially open door. I recognized Jennifer's laugh, that intimate sound I'd heard on the recording. My stomach tightened. "Mr. Patterson?" A woman in her 50s approached, hand extended. "I'm Rachel Boyd, Director of Procurement. You must be so proud of your wife's work." I shook her hand, managed a smile. "Very proud." "Please, come in. We're just getting started." The conference room was large, with windows overlooking downtown Raleigh. A long table dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs. Jennifer stood at the far end near a projection screen, laptop connected to the display system. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment, something like panic crossed her face. "David, you made it. Told you I would." Around the table sat 6 people. Rachel Boyd, 3 men in business attire who introduced themselves as various DOT officials, and, my pulse quickened, Derek Walsh. He was younger than I'd imagined, maybe 35, with the kind of easy confidence that came from never being told no. He didn't offer to shake my hand, just nodded with barely concealed irritation. "Shall we begin?" Rachel Boyd settled into her chair at the head of the table. "Jennifer, whenever you're ready." Jennifer's hands trembled slightly as she advanced her first slide. The title appeared: NC Rural Infrastructure Assessment, Final Report and Recommendations. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steadier than her hands. "Over the past 8 months, Patterson Consulting Group has conducted comprehensive assessments of rural infrastructure across 12 counties, analyzing bridge conditions, road quality, and maintenance needs." She clicked to the next slide, a map of North Carolina with counties highlighted in different colors. I'd seen this before in the files I'd copied. It looked professional, authoritative. Our methodology involved on-site inspections, structural analysis, and community input sessions. Another click. Photos appeared: bridges, rural roads, what looked like official inspection reports. I watched Derek Walsh. He was nodding along, playing his part. How many times had they rehearsed this together? Had they practiced in hotel rooms between their other activities? The assessment revealed critical deficiencies in 17 bridge structures, 12 requiring immediate attention. Jennifer's confidence was building. She was good at this, I had to admit. If I didn't know the truth, I'd believe every word. Our team documented each site with detailed photography, structural measurements, and engineering analysis. Rachel Boyd leaned forward. "Jennifer, these photos are excellent. Very thorough documentation." "Thank you. We pride ourselves on comprehensive fieldwork." That's when I noticed them. 2 people I didn't recognize, standing near the back wall. A woman in a dark pantsuit and a man in business casual, both watching Jennifer with intense focus. They hadn't introduced themselves. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. Agent Reeves. The 2 in back are FBI. We're recording. Jennifer advanced to another slide, this one showing what she claimed were priority recommendations. More photos, more technical language, more lies. She was selling it perfectly, and the DOT officials were buying. "The total estimated cost for critical repairs is $8.3 million, Jennifer said. "However, our analysis suggests a phased approach could reduce immediate expenditure to $4.2 million while addressing the most urgent safety concerns." "Impressive work," one of the officials said. "Derek, you were right about Patterson Consulting." Derek Walsh smiled. "I knew Jennifer would deliver." "I bet he did." Rachel Boyd opened a folder in front of her. "Before we discuss next steps and potential contract extensions, I'd like to review some specifics. Jennifer, can you walk us through your inspection of the Henderson County Route 9 bridge? That's listed as your highest priority concern." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jennifer's smile froze. "Of course," she said, but her voice had changed. Tighter. The Route 9 bridge showed significant structural deterioration, particularly in the support columns. "Can you show us those photos?" Rachel Boyd's tone remained pleasant, but something had shifted. "I'd like to see the column damage you documented." Jennifer clicked through her slides, but the photos that appeared were generic bridge shots, nothing specific to Henderson County. These images show the typical deterioration patterns we observed. I'm asking specifically about Route 9. Rachel Boyd's pleasantness had evaporated. The bridge you claim to have inspected on July 23rd and again on September 12th. Where are those inspection photos? The silence stretched. Jennifer's finger hovered over her laptop trackpad. We have extensive documentation. Let me pull up the specific files. Don't bother. Rachel Boyd stood, and her expression made my chest tighten. Ms. Patterson, there is no Route 9 bridge in Henderson County. There never has been. Jennifer's face went white. Furthermore, Rachel continued, her voice hard as granite, we've conducted our own investigation of your submitted reports. The photos you claim are from North Carolina sites are actually from infrastructure projects in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. We verified this through reverse image searches and by contacting the actual engineering firms who took these photos. That's not, I can explain. You've billed the state of North Carolina $1.8 million for work that was never performed. Rachel Boyd nodded toward the two people at the back of the room. Agent Reeves, Agent Thompson, she's all yours. The FBI agents moved forward, and everything happened quickly. Agent Reeves identified herself, reading Jennifer her rights in a calm, professional voice. Jennifer's eyes found mine across the room, wide with betrayal and disbelief. David, her voice broke, did you... I attended a government meeting where my wife was supposed to present her completed work, I said quietly. That's all. Derek Walsh had gone pale, half risen from his chair. Agent Thompson turned to him next. Derek Walsh, you're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and federal program fraud. The room erupted. DOT officials conferring in urgent whispers, chairs scraping, Jennifer's voice rising in desperate protest as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Through it all, I sat perfectly still, watching the woman I'd married, the mother of my children, realize that her carefully constructed lies had finally collapsed. Agent Reeves caught my eye as they led Jennifer toward the door. A slight nod, almost imperceptible. Acknowledgement. Jennifer looked back one more time. The kids, she said. David, please, the kids. They're at school, I said, where they're supposed to be. Then she was gone, and I was alone in a room full of strangers, the projection screen still displaying her fraudulent presentation, my phone already ringing with a call from Lauren Mitchell. The revenge I'd imagined had never felt sweet. It just felt necessary. And it was only beginning. The trial took 14 months. 14 months of depositions, grand jury testimony, and watching my children struggle to understand why their mother was gone. Emma stopped sleeping through the night. Tyler started wetting the bed again, something he hadn't done since he was 4. I hired a child psychologist, cut my work hours in half, and learned to braid hair through YouTube videos at 2 in the morning. Jennifer pled guilty 3 weeks before trial was scheduled to begin. Her attorney, a public defender after her assets were frozen, had advised her that fighting was pointless. The FBI had recovered everything. Emails between her and Derek Walsh discussing which contracts to target, bank records showing how she'd spent the money, forensic analysis of her plagiarized reports. Derek had already accepted a plea deal, testifying against her in exchange for a reduced sentence. The judge gave her 8 years in federal prison, restitution of $2.1 million plus penalties. Derek got 6 years. Both were led away in shackles while I sat in the gallery, holding Emma's hand on one side and Tyler's on the other, because they'd insisted on being there. They needed to see it, their therapist had said. Needed to understand that actions had consequences. Is Mommy a bad person? Tyler asked me that night, his 7-year-old face scrunched with confusion. I'd thought about this question for months, rehearsed different answers. In the end, I told him the truth as simply as I could manage. Mommy made very bad choices, I said. She hurt a lot of people, including our family, but that doesn't mean we stop loving her. It just means she has to face what she did. Emma, older and angrier, had her own take. She lied to everyone. She lied to you, to us, to the government. She deserves what she got. I didn't argue. Emma would need years to process her anger, and that was okay. We all grieve differently. The house was seized as part of the asset forfeiture since Jennifer had used fraud proceeds to pay down the mortgage. Lauren Mitchell fought it, managed to recover my portion of the equity, enough for a down payment on a smaller place in a good school district. We moved 6 months after Jennifer's sentencing. Emma cried the day we left, not for her mother, but for her bedroom, her treehouse, the neighborhood where she'd grown up. "It's not fair," she sobbed. "We didn't do anything wrong." "No," I agreed, holding her. "You didn't. But sometimes we pay for other people's choices anyway." It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was the truth. I visit Jennifer twice a year at the Federal Correctional Facility in West Virginia. Not for her, for Emma and Tyler. They need to maintain some connection, however tenuous, to their mother. The visits are awkward, stilted conversations in a room that smells like industrial cleaner and desperation. Jennifer always cries, always apologizes, always asks if I've forgiven her. I haven't. I'm not sure I ever will. But I've made peace with what happened. Not forgiveness, peace. The understanding that Jennifer's choices were her own, that I couldn't have prevented them, that protecting my children meant doing something that hurt them in the short term, but saved them from something worse. Derek Walsh served 4 years before being released to a halfway house. I heard he moved to Florida, works at a car dealership now. I don't think about him much anymore. He was just a symptom of Jennifer's deeper problems. Her need for validation, her willingness to cut corners, her belief that rules applied to other people. Emma is 16 now, a sophomore in high school with her mother's intelligence and, thankfully, my sense of right and wrong. She wants to be a lawyer, she says. Someone has to make sure people face consequences for their actions. I don't point out the irony. She'll figure it out on her own. Tyler is 13, quieter than his sister, more forgiving. He writes letters to Jennifer every month, tells her about his baseball games and his friends. She writes back, and I read the letters first, checking for manipulation, for excuses, for anything that might hurt him. Mostly they're just sad. A mother missing her son's childhood from behind bars. I remarried 2 years ago, a woman named Rebecca who teaches 3rd grade and has never committed a felony. The kids like her. Not as a replacement for Jennifer, but as someone who shows up, who keeps promises, who demonstrates that trust isn't a weapon. We're building something new, something honest. People ask me sometimes if it was worth it. Turning in my wife, destroying my children's family, setting off the chain of events that led to prison sentences and asset seizures and years of therapy bills. I think about the taxpayers whose money Jennifer stole. The honest contractors who lost bids because Derek Walsh was rigging the system. The infrastructure that still needs repair because funds were diverted to fraudulent contracts. The rule of law that means nothing if people in positions of trust can violate it without consequences. And I think about Emma and Tyler, about the lesson they learned. Not that their mother was perfect, but that no one is above accountability. That love doesn't mean protecting people from the results of their choices. That sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. Was it worth it? I don't know. Some days I think yes. Some days I lie awake at 3 in the morning, listening to Tyler's nightmares through the wall, and I'm not sure of anything. But I know this. I made the only choice I could live with. Jennifer made hers too. And in the end, we both have to carry the weight of those decisions. That's not justice. That's not revenge. That's just the price of truth in a world built on lies. The kids are going to be okay. I'm going to make sure of it. And maybe that's the only victory that matters. Not that the guilty were punished, but that the innocent survived. We're still surviving. Some days that's enough.